now I want to dive a little bit into neurospace. With it, you're using AI to fight space collision and debris. We often hear about the Kessler syndrome, which is the idea of a collision chain reaction. Is AI the only way we can manage a congested and contested orbit, or do we also need to start sort of physically cleaning space?
Well, it's both, right? I mean, AI is a tool, and it's a tool to enable a certain number of things. So let me step back because I think your question contains a number of very important elements. In order to, let's say, keep or make sure that space is sustainable, there's a number of things that we have to do. One is, of course, clean up the past, and the second is make sure that in the future we are cleaner or more sustainable than we were in the past, right? So how do you do that? By cleaning up, of course, you mentioned it. So we have to take down certain objects which are high risk because they're very big. And if those break down, then they facilitate the Kessler syndrome from happening, right? So you've looked into the Kessler syndrome. And if your listeners research further, they will find out that there's a number of objects that we have to take down per year to make sure that we avoid that Kessler syndrome from happening. It's in about 5. It's a bit about 5 of those very big objects. So that's one point, okay? Then there's a second point of making sure that the objects which are in space today don't collide with one another, to make sure that, again, there's no additional debris that is caused. And that's also obviously where AI comes in, because AI is a good tool for prediction and for facilitating certain processes, accelerating certain computational elements. So AI is a big term to mean a number of different things. We also talk about physics-informed machine learning or AI, right? So that's one of the aspects. And then, of course, there's the aspect of making sure that whatever goes up next is also let's say sustainable. And here you can introduce many different technologies. Some technologies are about recycling in orbit. This is the future, right? Producing stuff and recycling things in orbit, using resources that we have in orbit, collecting water or other, let's say, metals and materials in orbit, and producing things in orbit. So we become not only sustainable, but we become also Earth independent. Right.
Professor Manfletti, you've talked about the future. Right now we're talking about the future of space travel. So as we have seen lately that space travel has become a little bit more common. We've seen celebrities go up there in space. So do you think that, for example, in 20 years or in a near future, space will be more common, like space travel will be more common, more accessible? Or do you think it will still be a long time until it's not seen like a sort of niche and extreme and sort of geek type of frontier?
I do think that fundamentally humans are curious, and there's advancement in technologies as part of who we are and what brings us into the future. So I definitely think that there's a future in which humans going into orbit in one way or the other is going to be definitely more common. Whether it's going to be in 10 and 20 or in 5 years or in 30, this I cannot tell you. It also a lot depends on the geopolitical situation. And, today the situation globally is very complex. And although we have nations which are in conflict with one another that are still providing to the support of astronauts, I do believe that, let's say, a more stable and more peaceful geopolitical situation would facilitate also more humans getting into orbit. But fundamentally, yes, I do believe that something like Star Trek is in our future. It's not just science fiction, but is science future, if you will.
Professor Manfletti, aerospace, well, obviously it's a STEM career, so it's stereotypically male dominated. What is one thing you think the industry needs to change today so that when my generation enters the workforce, we aren't talking about gender or, for example, age as well, but we're also talking about genius and the capability of doing things?
Well, look, I mean, I do believe that diversity is a very important component in bringing success. So I do like the way, we're talking about diversity and no longer just gender. I do see today a lot more, let's say, female or women in certain positions. And I do think that, or at least I'm told that being in the roles that I've had in the past and the roles I have today, there's also a role model figure, which helps stimulate also others or other women to enter the field. And I think that it will be a self-sustaining process, right? So I think, again, those that recognize the importance of diversity will also make sure that this happens. And it's very nice to see how it's not just something that women talk about, it's something that men talk about a lot. So sometimes I even find myself talking and having conversations with men that feel a lot more strongly about diversity than I would normally feel. And it's a very rewarding experience, especially when it's, and I find that extremely nice when it's fathers that maybe have a daughter or two daughters. It really warms my heart, I have to admit. So
Professor, it is one of my dreams to study at the Technological University of Munich. In your eyes, what makes German aerospace ecosystem so unique compared to the rest of the world? And what are you looking for in the next generation of students that go into aerospace?
So the German ecosystem is quite unique because there's many different players, right? From, the small innovators, strong universities, startups, and large corporates. And then we have obviously a funding base, which is good from a governmental point of view. Obviously at European level, we're trying to ramp up in private financing as well to try and strengthen that ecosystem further. We're very far from where other countries are, like, for example, the US. But let's say that there's end-to-end actors across the chain, and there is a very strong will from each and every actor to contribute to these ecosystems. So again, it's a self-fueling kind of mechanism, right? And these ecosystems, they grow. Munich is one of those centers where, because there's more and more actors, because there's a very strong will also from the local and regional government of Bavaria to support the ecosystem keeps on growing, right? And it attracts private investment, it attracts public investments, it attracts startups, it attracts then obviously talent internationally, like yourself. Now, what I expect from students, I can't say expectation is a big word. I wish the young generation to be curious, hungry, pragmatic, and fundamentally looking to the future, always with a positive sense of, yeah, let's make it happen, right? So always in a positive, yeah, optimistic way. That's what I wish for students to have for themselves and for everybody else as well.
You've had a truly amazing and inspiring career path. What is one soft skill, something they don't teach you at school or they don't teach you at physics class, that has been key for unlocking your success in leading organizations like ESA or in your own startup project like Neurospace?
When I went to an American school when I was a child. So, and this was in Italy. I'm originally Italian, of course. And then obviously I learned different languages at school. And I noticed later on that being exposed to different cultures from a very early age is a skill which I learned passively without even noticing, which helped me later on incredibly, because it's about communication. It's about bridging and building bridges between diversity, between different cultures, between different disciplines. So I would emphasize for sure that communicating and being curious about, let's say, people that surround you, and being able to build bridges between people, enablers, and also disciplines is certainly a very important skill, especially when you go into STEM. Being able to communicate also complex technical content in a way which people that are curious to find out more can actually feel associated with is a very important skill, which, at least when I was studying, is not something that we were really taught. I think that things are improving. I mean, show and case with your fantastic YouTube channel. So yeah, but that is definitely an important skill.
Professor Manfletti, everything you have talked about today has been truly fascinating, and your job is truly incredible. So I really can't help but wonder, what projects are you unlocking for yourself right now? Is something in the builds or in the works?
Now this is a question I have to think about now. Yeah, I mean, privately, I'm always thinking of new stuff to do. I like to build stuff. At heart, I'm an engineer, right? So I can tell you privately, for example, I have bees in my garden, and one of the things that I'm doing is I'm setting up a little project where I can observe the bees and try and understand and monitor them across the year. So I know when to feed them. I know when they're doing well, when they're not doing so well. So let's say privately, I have all of these little side projects, and within work, I can tell you that there's many projects that are coming up. So I'm responsible also for the Department of Aerospace and Geodesy. We're building a campus. So let's say life doesn't get boring, neither privately nor professionally, and I'm loving it.
I'm so glad. Lastly, Professor Manfletti, for the teens that are nuts for aerospace like I am, and who maybe feel intimidated by the complexity of the career and engineering in general, what are your words of motivation for us to keep pushing even when things get hard? Or what is some piece of advice for our audience today?
As I said, I think curiosity is a strong driver, whichever field that you're in, and trying to find out more and not being taken aback by difficulties that we may have when we encounter challenges in life. I think is an important skill, or is an important thing to bear in mind. One of the philosophies that I always have is when I am there's a change that's coming up, or there's a decision to be made. One of the things that I always want to make sure is that I don't live with any regrets. So always looking forward, hungry for new challenges, and always curious and very open-minded. Is whatever field you're in is, I think, always the best in life.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Manfletti, for being here with us today. It has truly been an honor to have you here on Oriana Unlock. Thank you for showing us that we have to be curious in order to keep unlocking what the future holds for us, and especially space. That is such a broad and interesting topic that we should all be curious about and interested in exploring more about. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and for your words. And thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this conversation as much as I did, and if you unlocked new knowledge, which I'm sure I did, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel, to hit that like button, and to follow me on all of my social media accounts at Oriana Unlock on Instagram and on TikTok, so that you never miss out on a new opportunity to unlock new knowledge. Professor Manfletti, I can't wait to keep knowing how your research and how your inventions keep innovating our world and space. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and thank you all very much for watching. I will see you next time. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep unlocking your full potential. Bye!